Before we unlock this episode, I have to talk to you about the pleasure pods. If you know me, you know that I love teaching about slow sex and I love teaching about taking time to really feel each other's bodies. The pleasure pods is such a great product for that. Not only can you take these gorgeous little pods and melt them in the microwave to make it a massage oil, and you can massage your partner with that. You can also transition that safely into genital play, so this can be a lubricant. And then also, because it's food grade safe, you don't have to do any cleanup or transition of product if you are kind of down for some oral play. And not to mention, if you're going through perimenopause or menopause and those 15 years of maybe some vaginal dryness, the moisture that you're going to get from the pleasure pods is just above and beyond anything that you're ever going to experience. All we do is we crack this into little tiny pieces, insert when we feel like we need a little extra moisture and a little extra love down there, and go about your day. This is such an amazing all-in-one product. You have to try them out for yourself. You can find these now at Pure Pharmacy in British Columbia, at thepleasurepods.com, or Amazon Canada. Welcome to the Intimacy Unlocked podcast. I'm Serena Haines, your everything to do with sex coach, and I'm here to answer all of your juiciest sex questions. Hello, lovers, and welcome back to Intimacy Unlocked. I'm your everything to do with sex coach, and we're going to talk a lot about a lot of different things today, but can we just we're going to pop off on perimenopause. So you know what? Strap in, settle in, and I know full well that there are so many women out there experiencing something that nobody taught us about and nobody told us was coming, really. So we're going to get into that in a little bit, but we got a question, or not really, it was kind of like a comment that came in from the last episode. Remember we talked about 69ing and what that felt like? And this couple wrote in, and I've got to read this because this was so cool, and it just demonstrates how well we can move forward in long-term relationships. Hi, Serena and Sarah. I wanted to talk about 69ing from episode 5. My wife, married 19 years, and I stumbled upon a fun game we play occasionally when we do foreplay, 69 Chicken. We get each other to the absolute edge of orgasm, and whoever taps out first, the other person gets to pick the position for the intercourse segment. It's quite fun, and we usually have a laugh. It also encourages both of us to try new things on our partner, with permission, of course. I've never heard anyone ever talk about 69 Chicken, so maybe my wife and I are pioneers. Love your show. And I really, really love that. This is how you create just joy and playfulness and fun in your relationships, you know? I mean, we can only do so many things with 69. We can only do so many things with missionary. We can only do so many things after 19, 20 years together. So how are you going to keep it fresh, and how are you going to keep it fun? I think this is such a great way. And it keeps that little bit of edge in there. I don't want to lose today because I really want to be on top this time. So if I lose, then he's going to get to pick the position. So I really got to make this work. I really have to. And it builds that tension and anticipation. It kind of reminds me also of, and why I call my shows Just the Tip, is because playing Just the Tip is super fun. Have you ever been with your partner? And I'll explain it because you know what? I say it all the time, people know exactly what I'm talking about, and not everybody does. But when you are having any sort of insertion, it doesn't have to be with a penis. It can be with a dildo or fingers or anything else. But basically, you just put the tip right on the vaginal opening, a half an inch in, not even in, literally just right there while you're doing other things, kissing, nipple play, maybe some clit play, maybe it's a dildo or fingers, and you're also doing some manual play on your partner if they have a penis or if they have a clitoris as well. So you're still in the erotic tension, right? You're still having the sex as well, but you put that thing right there next to the vaginal opening, and whoever caves first is basically the loser, right? But I mean, it ultimately is the winner. But it's a super fun little way to build that tension, you know? So I think this was just super cool. Thank you so much for writing in and letting us know that that's where you guys are in your relationship. So if you guys out there are listening and you play 69 Chicken and you want to reach out and let us know how that worked for you. Maybe what position you were able to kind of pull out of it. Maybe you were able to do something that you didn't think that you were ever going to kind of be able to do or didn't feel comfortable talking about. Because sometimes when we have that on the line and it's like, ooh, I get to choose, you can go a little past your comfortable space of having those conversations with your partner. So let's say, you know that it's okay to ask for doggy, but maybe you want to ask for anal, and maybe you've never really had the opportunity or the door open to ask for that. This could be that moment, right? And you feel a little bit more confident and comfortable asking for it. So thank you for writing in. We really love feedback. We love hearing back from you guys after listening to an episode. So that's so cool. Thank you so much. So this episode that we're going to do today is mostly about perimenopause and menopause. Sarah and I are going to have a couple of chats. We've had some speak pipes come in. We're going to play a couple of voice notes, and then we're really going to kind of get into it. I'm really excited to see what everybody has to say. So, Sarah, why don't you play our first voicemail, and let's just dive right in.
Hey, Serena, it's Amanda Otterman. I am really, really excited to be doing our webinar on sex and menopause in the bedroom in May. But I do have a question, and this is something that I hear quite a bit from clients who are really struggling with changes in their libido and just overall sexual function as they go into menopause. And this is, how do I turn myself back on? It feels like there's a disconnect between my brain and my pussy. Do you know what I mean? So, a lot of women say they're not interested, and but feel bad for not feeling interested. So I guess the question is, how do they overcome those feelings and just respark the bedroom again when they're still feeling like their libido is in the toilet?
I love that question. It's honest to God, it just encapsulates so many challenges that we're having when it comes to perimenopause and the way that our bodies are reacting and just the way that we're thinking about things. So just to start off, Amanda Otterman and I are going to be doing a webinar together, like she mentioned, through her Instagram handle, Menopause Health Nurse, at Meno Health Nurse, and we'll have all of that in the show notes. It's an open webinar for anybody who wants to join. We're going to be doing that on May 21st, I believe at 7 p.m. Eastern. I would have to check that to be sure. But Amanda is a registered nurse, and she has been for 20 years. She's also a fitness trainer, and she's a menopause health specialist. So her and I are going to join forces, and we're going to sit down together and talk all about what is actually happening inside of our bodies, not medically, but like biologically, how we can help that, what fitness does for our bodies, and then what we can do for our sex life as well. So hit the show notes up if you're interested in having a deeper conversation with Amanda and I about that on May 21st. But to get to her question a little bit, yeah, it's your pussy and your brain are basically in an argument with one another. So your brain kind of goes, I really should want this. I should want it. I know that it's good. I know that I should. I know that I like my partner, or I like myself, or I like orgasms if I've had them. But my body is just feeling completely disconnected. So like the biggest thing that I tell people, and I hate to use this phrase because it does get a little bit watered down, but it's like, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. And now it's not entirely true. So like, don't come at me right away. But what I mean by that is, once our brains and once our bodies and brains are disconnected, then we kind of forget that sometimes it's intention that's required in order for us to develop a new habit or a pattern in our lives. Much like going to the gym, for example. Not everybody's going to feel like going to the gym in the morning, or in the evening, whatever. But I always say, you never regret the workout that you do. You only regret the workout that you don't do. And I'd like you guys now to remember that you never regret the masturbation that you do. You only regret the masturbation that you don't do. And then your body starts shutting down a little bit more. So there's going to be so that's one tip. There's one out of many tips that I like to kind of encourage people a lot is to get in touch with your pussy again. There's so many things going on in your body, okay? So I'm not going to discount the fact that, your estrogen, your progesterone, your testosterone are so important for those sexual arousal feelings to happen. But if it's something that you need to do in your bedroom without, talking to a medical professional yet, my recommendation is first and foremost to touch your pussy. Put your hand on your vulva. Start a little self-pleasure practice. Does that mean you have to masturbate to orgasm all the time? Absolutely not. Some people think that all I want everybody to do is like stay home and just come all day long. And that'd be super cool, except we have shit to do, right? We have stuff to do. So if all you can manage in your day is maybe being in the shower and, caressing your nipples a little bit and allowing that sensation to just permeate your body a little bit. Remember, right? We have to remember what it felt like. And then maybe touching your clitoris and maybe touching your vulva. Now, when we're in perimenopause, a lot of the time people will report, even their clitoris, it either feels numb or it hurts. The skin on your labia minora might be becoming, kind of dry or just not feeling the way that it used to. Your vaginal opening might not be feeling well. You're not well lubricated. Everything can be changing. The symptoms of perimenopause are vast, and we're going to get into those in a little while. But in that case, I first want you to touch yourself. And then secondly, use a lube or a moisturizer that's going to help, right? So we have all kinds of medical things that we're going to do too. And we're going to touch on that in a minute. I know we have another speak pipe that's going to kind of touch on that. We're going to talk about it. But when it comes to touching yourself, don't go in dry, right? Go in moisturized already. So, as always, I'm going to tell you about the Pleasure Pods just super quick. But if you take something like a Pleasure Pod, which is a solid lubricant, and you crack this up, and it's like a moisturizer, and you kind of pop a little bit inside of your vagina on a daily basis, just the same way you would if you were moisturizing your face in the morning. You can crack this up into the tiniest little pieces, and every single day just kind of pop a little bit up inside of you. It's not necessarily for sexual feelings and arousal, but what it does is it brings your attention to your pussy. It brings intention to your vaginal care, and it kind of helps you feel a little bit alive down there. It's the same idea as when we used to say, when you were dating, you put on, or not even dating, but when you want to feel good about yourself, put on the lingerie, feel really good if that's what you like. But people are like, put on a little matching set, you're going to feel good. It's the intention behind it. So I want you to try to start with that without getting too far into, your hormone therapies and your estrogen creams and all of those things. Sometimes it has just been so long that you forget that you once liked it, and you forget how your body used to create those pleasure pathways to your brain. Now, the second thing, which is a little more risky to say, is that, for a lot of our lives, women generally have maybe been having sex that they didn't love as much as they could have loved, okay? Especially if we're in heterosexual relationships and default monogamous relationships, we have been taught the societal script. I don't know if anybody else has heard this. I'm really treading lightly here because I know this might rub some people the wrong way, but the whole duty sex, marital sex, if you don't do it, he'll find somebody else who will. There's a lot of narratives that we've been kind of fed over the years, especially in the generation who are in perimenopause right now, between 35 and 50. That's that generation where we were just kind of coming out of the 1950s housewife boomer era with that idea of what a housewife was. And these narratives were still being fed to us by, generationally. So it has nothing to do with your mom or your grandma or anything like that. It really is just society as a whole. So what ends up happening when you're in perimenopause is your estrogen levels decrease, slowly over time, over a course of 15 years sometimes. I mean, this is a long process. So sometimes it's 10 to 15 years, and that's slowly decreasing. And your estrogen is your give a fuck hormone, right? So back in the day, maybe you're thinking, I don't have desire right now. I don't have desire anymore because I'm in perimenopause. But I would like you to be really, really, really honest with yourself. Some of you are going to say, no, I really loved sex and now it's gone and that really bothers me. I get that. But for some of us, it's going to be that conversation where you go, I used to have sex. I used to be able to bring myself to have sex, but now I can't. And what you may come to notice is that as your give a fuck hormone decreases, you don't give a fuck anymore to have shitty sex. So if you've been having shitty sex, if you've not been orgasming, if it doesn't feel really good for you, if you're not doing what you wanted to do for the past 20 years, if you were just kind of feeling like maybe you were having duty sex, or maybe, and it doesn't have to feel bad when you have duty sex. Let me be perfectly clear. I've been married for 20 years. He and I are both very well versed in the idea that not everybody's going to be in the exact same mood all the time, and you love and respect your partner and everything's consensual and it's great, but maybe somebody's a little more enthusiastic than the other on a certain Wednesday, and that's okay thing when you're in a long-term relationship like that. I get that. But if you've been having really shitty sex, when your give a fuck hormone goes down, then you really don't even give a fuck to try anymore. So I really want you to think about that before you think there's anything broken or wrong with you, because there probably is not. There definitely is not. We're going through a backwards adolescence that nobody taught us about, that nobody prepared us for, that all we heard was, the change of life back in the day. Grandma might have went through the change of life, and that was all we really kind of talked about, right? But remember that when the generations before us were going through menopause and perimenopause, women's pleasure was really not at the forefront of anybody's mind. So that really wasn't a conversation anybody was having out loud. I promise you that grandma was having that conversation with her sisters and her aunties, but not necessarily out loud and for everybody to hear. So I think that getting in touch with your pussy again, allowing yourself some blood flow there, allowing yourself, a nice moisturizer, masturbating as much as you possibly can, and however you really, really like it. Did you know that doctors are now actually starting to prescribe vibrators for people in menopause and perimenopause? Yeah, shocker. Because the vibration, even if it's not on your clitoris, the vibration on your pelvic floor stimulates the muscles and the vasculature there to bring blood flow to that area. And blood flow carries oxygen, and oxygen helps growth. And what we want is a lot of blood in that area so that our pelvic floor stays really, really firm and beautiful. We're doing our exercises, we're masturbating, we're having orgasms, we're using our lube and our estrogen creams and all of the things. And that's going to kind of help us move through this transition. Nothing takes it away, right? We're not trying to cure perimenopause. That's not how this goes down. But we're trying to really help those symptoms so that we can live a fulfilled. Okay, Sarah, I think you have something that you'd like to ask me.
Okay. Well, I have a question because I feel like I'm 38.
Yeah.
I never thought that menopause was even like in my near future at all.
Right.
In my opinion, like I grew up thinking it was like 40s.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously like low desire. I definitely do feel that disconnection. But my question is, how do I know that is linked to perimenopause, or if it's just like my personality or something?
So here's what I have to say to that. Here's my professional opinion on that. Any woman who hits 35 should just assume they're in perimenopause. That's my answer. It's the only answer I have. Because honestly, how else are we supposed to really know?
Right?
Yeah. It's tough because we're going to have, there's hundreds. I can't remember the lady's name, but there's 135 different symptoms or something of perimenopause. I pulled a couple up right now, and let's just go through these ones. So we've got irregular periods, hot flashes and night sweats, mood changes, irritability, anxiety, sleep problems, vaginal dryness, changes in libido, right? So decrease in sex drive, fatigue, waking up at 3 a.m., specifically 3 a.m. because of our hormonal fluctuations, that if you ask any perimenopausal woman between 2:30 and 3:30 a.m., they're bing, wide awake. Brain fog. And I don't know if you guys have caught on yet, because Sarah is an editor extraordinaire, but sometimes I totally stroke out and I don't even remember the name of anything while I'm talking. And it could be the simplest word as microphone. I'll be the thing that I'm talking into that I can hear. And she's like, microphone? I'm like, yes, Jesus Christ, yes. It's just crazy. Weight gain. So that weight gain is something that Like, it's just so stupid to have to deal with, because it's not even what we consider the fat that we can lose sometimes. It's visceral fat, and visceral fat is different, and it lives around our organs. And we're not going to get too deep into it now, but it basically is not the kind of fat that you will lose through like calorie deficit and exercise. It has a lot more to do with like your hormonal balances and things like that. So that's really shitty. And then all it says here is other possible symptoms: joint pain, muscle ache, skin changes, heart palpitations, and hair loss. And guess what I just found out the other day? This is so fun. Runny nose is also a symptom of perimenopause. Does anybody, and like when I heard it, I was just like shocked, but not really. I was shocked because I was like, shit, I never noticed before. But every older woman in my life always had Kleenex in their sleeve, Kleenex in their pocket. Like, they didn't have fucking allergies all this time. It's just runny nose, like postnasal drip. These things that are changing because of our estrogen and progesterone levels are fucking our
I
bodies
constantly
up.
have a runny nose.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Right? So it could be anything. Could be allergies.
Could be allergies.
You could go get that tested. Could be, you got a little cold. Could be perimenopause. Somebody comes to me and they're like, oh my God, my arm really hurts, or like my knuckle hurts today. I go, could be perimenopause.
That's the title of the episode. It could be.
It could be.
It could be perimenopause.
It literally.
It likely is.
It likely is. If you are 35 to 55, it is likely perimenopause.
So 35.
Yeah.
It could very well.
Listen,
that seems to be an age that things really change for women, because that's also the geriatric pregnancy age.
Yes. So
all of this
is the thing, right? So if we really look at all of the, everything that kind of comes together on that 35-year mark is the year that we talk about like our collagen decreasing and our boobs sag and our faces start and the jowls come out. Like, everything just kind of starts there, and it has so much to do with what's going on inside of our bodies. And there's nothing wrong with any of it. We can age gracefully. We can age with all of this stuff happening. Frozen shoulder is a really big one. Like, there's a lot of women, and I suffered from this in my 30s as well, where I felt like I always had a knot in my shoulder and I couldn't lift it and it hurt so bad. Now that I'm remembering I'm learning all of this, or like relearning all of this, I remember my mom. My mother went through menopause actually when she was in her early 30s. So she had early onset menopause. And I'm talking by the time she was 35, she had no more periods and she was completely done, had osteoporosis, had the bones of an 80-year-old, and had to go on like extreme hormone therapy to help because nobody knew it was happening. She literally didn't know it was happening until she went into her doctor complaining about something. They finally did some testing and was like, oh shit, you're already in menopause. Like, because they didn't even talk about it. She didn't even know what to ask.
My God.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. I remember my mom lying on the kitchen floor my entire life, lying on the kitchen floor with her legs up, because she would always complain that her back hurt and her hips hurt, that every time she would bring in groceries, like her shoulder would hurt. She was always getting shots in her shoulder, like steroid shots in her shoulder, because the doctor kept telling her she had bursitis in her shoulder, only to come and realize now that I know all the information that I know now, no, I would say she had perimenopausal symptoms, and they were treating those symptoms because she was so young. They weren't treating her for perimenopause or menopause at all. It wasn't even on the table. And it wasn't until she hit 35 that she didn't have a period anymore. And she was like, what the heck is going on? My whole body's falling apart. I'm achy. She got a bone density test, and she had the bones of an 80-year-old because she had been in menopause for so long.
Whoa.
However that works. I'm not going to lie. I'm not like a doctor. So like, I don't know how long that takes, but yeah, that was the thing. So at 35, my mom was on hormone replacement therapy, and she was on that then until I think she was 65 or 70, and then she came off of it.
So is there any real is there any way to confirm for sure, other than you're going, like, the no period thing is probably a big one.
Is the only thing. So here's the deal. So our hormones fluctuate daily, by the hour sometimes, right? On a good day in our regular cycle, our estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone are always like up and down and all over the place and doing the things. They have general large slides, right? Like your first week of your period, and then afterwards your luteal phase. And so we have general large slides, but within that there's little slides as well. So if you went to your doctor and you said, I want to get my hormones tested and see if I'm in perimenopause, the thing is, it may come back that all of your hormones are like at a perfect perfect level all the time because of that one little micro unit of blood that they took from you and that they tested had the perfect combination of all of your hormones in it. The next micro unit or the next hour that you took your blood, it could be completely different. So that's a very normal thing. So there's really no way to kind of test it through blood. So what we do now that we know all of this stuff, and our medical professionals are starting to get much better versed in this, I will say they're starting to talk about it a lot more and learn about it a lot more, is asking about symptoms, asking the onset of the symptoms, how long that they last. But generally speaking, I know it's kind of a joke, and I'm sure there's somebody who could come out with like a real like solid answer, although I don't know. But anyway, we'll talk to Amanda on May 21st. So come to that talk on May 21st. We're going to shoot the nurse and a menopause specialist. We're going to have all of those questions answered from the biology side of it. But the only way that you will really know that you're in menopause is when it's 365 days past your last period. So that is a one-day event. And we think menopause is this stage of life. Perimenopause is a stage of life. Menopause is that one day, 365 days after your last period, you can go, haha, menopause. And the next day, you're postmenopausal. So it's a really fun little fact to know that we can kind of gauge it that way. Now, I mean, it's not great to know that it's 15 years of perimenopause, give or take. Some people won't suffer that long. And you know what? I apologize for even using the word suffer, because it doesn't even have to be that negative. It really is just a stage of life that we try to mitigate the symptoms because we can't reverse the symptoms. We can with hormone therapy. Okay. So don't get me wrong. But in the moments of perimenopause, when we're dealing with, the frozen shoulder and the this and the that and the brain fog and all of that stuff, there's lots of vitamins and supplements and things that you can take. There's estrogen creams that we can rub on our skin, estrogen creams we can put inside of our vagina to kind of help everything in a more local way if you don't want to take hormone replacement therapy. But that hormone replacement therapy is not evil. Years and years and years ago, there was a really small study. And within that small study, there was a very small indicator that hormone therapy could have an effect on breast cancer. And because of that, the media took it and ran with it. Everybody took it and ran with it. And hormone therapy got just labeled as evil and the devil. And so many women didn't have that, and they suffered for a really long time. But we have bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, and it's so very safe, and it's so wonderful. Talk to your medical provider. Don't take my word for it. Talk to your medical provider about that, but have that conversation and ask what that's about, and do your research and really learn what's going on in your body.
So another follow-up question. Changes in periods. Mm-hmm. So I've noticed, I've been pretty blessed with 2-day periods.
Oh my God.
For most of my life.
Get out of here.
I know.
I love that.
Listen, not blessed in other ways, but blessed in that way.
Okay.
But now, and I would say like probably in the last year or so, they have been ferocious. Yeah. I'm talking heavy.
Yeah.
I'm talking
crampy.
Many super tampons in a very short amount of time. Crampy.
Yeah.
And they do last longer. Like, longer for me.
Right.
So like
the average for the most of us.
Is that kind of a sign too?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Any change in your period at all, especially if you can track and say, for all of my life, I've been, like you said, 2 days, I used to be able to do the same thing. I could be like, this is my day. This is how long I'm going to be. I know that day 1 is not bad. Day 2 is bad. Day 3 is bad. Day 4 is not bad. Day 5, I could be, you can go down on me again, So it's kind of like, you can go down on a girl when she's on her period, for the record. That's all on the inside. So don't be scared. Because when you go down, you want to be on the outside. Okay? Anyway, just PSA.
Love that.
Just a PSA.
And if you do that, let us know.
And if you do that, let us know, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And it feels really, really great. And there's nothing that we want more if we really settle in and we feel safe and comfortable than feeling a warm breath on our pussies during crampy time. Anyways, I'm like off in my own little world right now thinking about that. Moving on. Right. So your period changing is definitely a sign of being in perimenopause or some sort of changes going on in your body. That can happen at any point in our lives too. Being a woman is just such a beautiful thing, like there's no fucking right answer. Like there's no solid answer to a lot of these things.
And I really feel for the women who have irregular periods all their life, because I mean, we hate periods, but they are an indicator that things are staying the course.
Right. Yeah.
So like
kinda
that
know
must
where
be
you
very
are.
confusing if you're irregular and then you become even more irregular. You're like,
Or
what
you
the
become
heck?
regular.
Or you become regular and then that's irregular.
Yeah. Holy shit. I literally in this moment right now, you're all witnessing me have, what's the fucking word for when you have an epiphany?
The brain
Oh
fog.
my God, do not cut that out. That was so real. I'm literally having an epiphany. I just said to you that like my periods had always been regular. They weren't always regular. Like in my 20s, they weren't. My periods, get this, became regular after my third child was born, give or take. And I was 31 when my baby was born. And a couple of years later, I noticed that my periods became clockwork. And I'm just having a little moment where I'm like, I wonder if my perimenopausal symptom was such that maybe it threw my periods into a regular kind of whatever. I don't know how that works because the true definition is that your hormones are off and not creating that regularity. So I could be talking out of my ass. But anyway, I just thought that was just a moment in my head.
Well, it's also just like this is why it's important to pay attention to our bodies.
Yes.
Right? Like,
yeah.
It's important to track these things.
Yeah, it is important to track those things. It's important to pay attention to your body. Look at your vulva, for God's sake. Everybody out there right now, when you are listening to this, as you're listening to my voice right now, I want you to look at your pussy. Everybody should be taking some time and having a look at your vulva. Honestly, so many things can change. And if you go into your doctor or even your partner might say something to you, or maybe you notice something and you go, damn, how long was that there? Like, how long was that mole there? Or how long have I been discolored down there? Or how long has that looked that way? If you don't have... If you haven't been looking and you don't have anything to gauge that on, you're not going to know the answers to that. So it's actually really important for your health to be able to look at your vulva as well and feel the inside of your vagina with your own hands and be able to feel like, what does the musculature feel like on the inside? What does the tissue feel like on the inside? If you feel uncomfortable with that being like pleasure induction, like that's okay. But you really should be doing like maybe monthly or bi-monthly, just inserting a little finger in there and feeling around, making sure there's no like lumps, bumps, scar tissue tears, anything like that that's going on. It's your body and you really need to be proactive with taking care of it that way.
I think it's been years since I've done that.
Yeah, so maybe you should stick your finger in your pussy later.
Maybe everyone should put it in their calendar.
Yeah, right? Put it in your calendar like once a month, like a week after your period ends, if you feel like you just need to have a certain day, just do it and do it in the shower if you must. I say the same thing to men a lot of the time, to be honest with you, but I say, you really should be sticking a finger in your ass and being able to feel around. You might be able to feel your prostate, some sort of enlargement. This is your body we're talking about. I know people get squeamish about pleasure sometimes, but it's really important for just to kind of have that agency of your own and be able to advocate for yourself when you're in a medical office or when there's something going on. So I think that's important. So I think we have another speak pipe. So we're going to listen to another voicemail and see what we're going to talk about.
Menopause. Lord fucking help us all. I'm 51 and totally in the thick of it. My brain feels numb, like I'm seriously getting dumber by the day. The night sweats almost killed me until my doctor kindly prescribed estrogel, which I rub one little squirt on each arm every night before I go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
I've had vaginal dryness since I was in my mid-30s. That was solved by a nice little thing called Vagifem twice a week. And this menopause pooch just makes me look like I'm pregnant again. And all the protein in the world isn't making that bitch disappear. So yeah, menopause is a lot of fun.
I love it. You can just hear it. You can just hear it in her voice, like, for God's sakes. Like, and that's really how a lot of women feel. And if we're not having the conversation, having a laugh about it and sharing our stories and sharing how we're getting through it and how we're managing our own symptoms. And, a lot of people don't know, right? Like, did you know that you could get a vaginal estrogen that's really local, that you don't have to worry about it kind of mulling through your bloodstream so much, but it really helps with vaginal dryness and vaginal atrophy and keeping the tissues in your vagina really moisturized and full and healthy. We do our skincare routine on our faces. We take care of all of these things that people can see on the outside. But that skin on the inside, that tissue, that musculature that we have in our vagina and our pelvic floor, it's so important for our health. It's not just for pleasure, everyone. Like if we're not taking care of the muscles in our vagina and the tissues in our vagina, we can have like a bladder prolapse, we can have a uterine prolapse. And that basically just means that your organs in your pelvic bowl don't have the support that they used to have with the musculature and the tissue and the collagen and things that are in those areas. And everything just kind of starts to sag. And when that starts to sag, a lot of different things can happen. We can have incontinence. There can be a lot of pain. If you're not noticing it at the time, it can become a medical emergency if you're not really paying attention. So this is another reason why I say, please look at your vulva. Insert a finger into your vagina. If you insert a finger into your vagina and you feel something in there 1 to 2 inches in that maybe shouldn't be there, like feels like a lump of some sort, maybe your cervix is really low, maybe there's something coming in from this, like you need to know those things, right? So really take care of your body when, you're going through these changes. You can, like I said to Sarah a minute ago, if you're 35 plus, just assume you're in perimenopause and just assume that a lot of the things that you might be going through, other women are going through. Assume that when you go and talk to your doctor that they may or may not know exactly what's going on with you. And unfortunately, that's an okay thing on one side and not an okay thing on the other. So the medical doctors, they will admit, like I'm not making this up and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but this was not in their school. It wasn't in their teaching. They may have gotten like a 20-minute hour, depends on where they went to school, I guess, right? So who am I to say? But they really didn't get a heck of a lot of information on perimenopause. It just wasn't even studied. It's not like they kept it out on purpose even, but it wasn't studied and it wasn't really kind of taken into consideration. But now it is. So your doctor should be getting themselves a little more schooled on that. And if you happen to have one that isn't, just advocate for that and just say, you know what? I know, I listened to this and I heard this and I've read this and I know that these are a couple of things that are going on. And if you don't know how to help me, I'd really like it if both of us could maybe collaborate and create something that can help me get through these symptoms a little bit easier. Like that our little voicemail just said, the night sweats are not an easy thing to go through. The day sweats are not. I remember my aunt, she used to say, we would just be standing somewhere and all of a sudden she'd be like, oh my God, she's like ripping her clothes off. She's like, I'm having a tropical moment is what she used to call it. And I was like, oh, that's so cute, a tropical moment. But like we didn't talk about what that really was and what she was really going through, So I think it's really important for us to have those conversations. So thank you for that, I guess, confession story, letting us know how you're managing and getting through it. Please go talk to your doctors about big symptoms like that if you need something to help mitigate those night sweats and, headaches, brain fog, getting stupider. Like if it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist. Not past things and not present things. I've said to my partner a couple of times, and just my tone is sometimes a little harsh just because, but that's okay. I'm a Scorpio and that's just the way I live. And I totally accept that. So sometimes I have to be really mindful of the way things come out of my mouth because I'm really blunt. But I'll say something like, when was the last time we went out for dinner? And he'll be so hurt. And he's like, Serena, what do you, but he'll get angry. He gets defensive. And he used to, not anymore, but he would get defensive and be like, oh my God, I can't believe that you don't remember that I took you out 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, oh, no. I wasn't accusing you of not taking me out. I literally was asking, when was the last time we went out for dinner? Because I'm sure it happened, but I have no memory of it. I don't know where, and then he'll say, we went here, we went to this restaurant. I'm like, oh, yeah. Okay, I got there. It all came back to me. And I don't know how many times lately I've been like, my husband flies in and out for work. And I'm like, when are you coming in again? And he's like, Jesus Christ, if I have to tell you one more time, can you please just put it in the calendar? I'm like a toddler. He constantly has to be reminding me of things. Ooh, I have a fun fact. Did you know that one of the things that we go through perimenopause is, oh God, I don't know if I'll be able to remember this now because I wasn't expecting this to come to my mind. It's called working memory, I believe. And the level of working memory, just naturally and generally in women, biologically, is, let's just call it up here, right? It's at a certain standard. It's at a certain level. The working memory of males of human males is just a little bit lower than that. This is scientific. I'm not throwing shade at anybody. This is just the way that this is. When we go through menopause and perimenopause, what happens is the brain fog we feel and the stupidity we feel, it's our working memory decreasing, okay? Okay, so it freaks us out. But we actually don't decrease any lower than the males are on a good day. So it's not like we're dipping down underneath any sort of curve. We're literally just hitting the same level of working memory as our male counterparts. Now that's very general, because when I told my husband this, he was like, no, well, you've always been this way and I've always been better at you than that. And he's right. So everybody's going to have their own little, story about that. But scientifically speaking, that's how that works. There have been studies done for that, which I think is just really cool to think about. It also goes to show that that not give a fuck hormone, we're not actually, decreasing worse than anything. We're just coming down to the level of our counterparts. And for some reason, the whole world is really mad at us for just being at the same level. Doesn't that just go to show what kind of standard women are kept at, their entire lives, from, taking care of things and memorizing and remembering lists and taking on the mental load and doing all of that stuff. Once these hormones, this estrogen and progesterone, start to dip, we can't manage that mental load anymore. And this is kind of where we see I see a lot of couples come in, and all of a sudden there's resentment and there's anger and there's a lot of things going on, because in a heterosexual relationship, that one partner, that male partner, is kind of used to status quo, and we're used to it as well. If this is your relationship style, everybody's going to have a different way that you work out your daily chores and all of those routines and responsibilities. But if it is such that it's very textbook and very stereotypical, the males are like, she used to take care of this and do that. And we're looking at them going, I don't give a fuck anymore. I don't give a fuck about your standards. I don't give a fuck about the way you want me to look. Not you as in the husband, but you as in society, right? And that's what it is. But our poor partners get the brunt of it because they're there all the time. But it's basically us just giving one big FU to society, the rules, the regulations, the responsibilities that women have had to handle. Plus the fact that then hormonally and biologically, we can't manage the stress and the compounding of everything that we used to be able to handle, right? So it all comes hand in hand, if you really want to think about it, with, the idea that we're coming out of our childbearing years. So in childbearing years, yeah, you had a lot of responsibilities. Whether or not you had children or not is not the case. But biologically, your body was working toward being able to multitask, handle, and keep things rolling, right? And then once we're out of those, quote, childbearing years, your body kind of knows, okay, now it's time to rest and relax. So I say that if you're in perimenopause or you've hit menopause, as hard as the symptoms are to manage, I understand that. But instead of thinking about you being broken, and instead of thinking about this sucks and I hate this, try to think about it as, this is my new era. This is my new self. This is the next stage of my life. And if I embrace it and I love it and I find things that feel good to me and feel better, maybe I have to do some transitioning, then that might be a really great way of positively positioning this new change in your life. When you went into adolescence, nobody looked at you and was like, oh, this is going to suck. You're going to have to be an adult, although I think they kind of did too. But we learned all about what a beautiful space that was, and a lot of societies were celebrating, women's first periods and celebrating coming into that era of your life. And then we have that era of our life. And in other cultures, for the record, a lot of people are celebrating that new era of their lives. And it's a beautiful thing. But sometimes in our Western world, we do not, because, youth and beauty and all of these things are paramount from a male-centered gaze and society. But if we can look at this as the new era of becoming crone, of becoming wise woman, of becoming, it's just something different, and allowing your intuition to guide you instead of the society around you, and you can settle into that, you're going to find something so beautiful that's going to come alive once you accept that. So, ask yourself while you're listening to this with that new idea of what I just said, like thinking about this as a new stage of your life. What is it that I can love about myself? What is it that I can love about this stage in my life instead of focusing on, oh my God, all of the negative things, right? Or I'm losing this, or I can't do that. What can you do now? You can say fuck you to anybody. You can wear whatever the heck you want. We don't have to have our hair done. We don't have to have our makeup done. Like all of these little things. But what else is going on in your life? Have you noticed that, I'm saying, the fuck you hormone, and I'm just having a little bit of fun with that language, but have you noticed that you've been able to advocate for yourself a little bit more? Have you noticed that you just don't put up with other people's bullshit anymore, and that all of a sudden you have a voice, that you want to speak it? Have you noticed that, you have this intuition in your body, and you're noticing yourself giving maybe advice from a different point of view or a different perspective as you grow and age and blossom into the new person that you're going to become? What is it in your body that you do love? Do you love your new mustache? Maybe not, right? So I couldn't help it. I tweezed mine today. Maybe we don't love our new chin hairs, but maybe we do. I mean, they give me a lot to think about when I'm sitting down. I'm just playing with them, and I'm like, I'm going to let you grow for another day or two. It's going to be really satisfying to get you out. And you only know if you're listening. But what do you love about that? Do you feel like you have more, like a better handle on your pleasure? Do you feel like you can speak up for yourself a little bit more? Do you not worry about what other people think sometimes? Think about the things that really feel soft in your body. Think about the things that really feel like growth in your life, and focus on those, as well as trying to help mitigate the symptoms. I understand, but there's going to be some beautiful things. The same narrative goes when we talk about people having their periods. Everybody says things like, I hate my period. I hate that I have to go through this. I hate. But nobody's really ever taught you, nor have you really heard the language of loving your period, loving the idea that, that just shows that your body is alive and working in a certain stage of life. Loving that it kind of connects you to a different energy of, your feminine being, whatever that age and stage is in your life. Like this is so controversial when I talk to my girlfriends, but I love my cramps. I love them. And I will preface that by saying, I don't have terrible, terrible cramps, right? So mine are just this aching that just feels like, okay, girl, you're alive. But you know what I also love about my period is that my vulva gets swollen and that it's lubricated and that I'm really aware of it. And I might be one of those women who is the most horny while I'm bleeding and a couple of days later. And then after that, we're downhill. So we got 10 days of goodness. And then after that, there has to be a lot of intention behind my arousal. So that's the other thing, is when you're thinking about being in perimenopause, or even if you're not in perimenopause and you're just bleeding normally and maybe you don't have a bleed at all, like that's totally fine if you don't have a period at all either. But you're talking about your desire. Just realize that we go through cycles. So when I have people come into me and say, I'm just not horny all the time. I'm like, no, okay, good. And what? You're not kind of supposed to be. You're not supposed to be horny all the time. Even if you have responsive desire and your partner comes to you and you try to do things, just notice for a minute. maybe I'm in part of my cycle that I really don't want to. Maybe I do feel bloated. Maybe I actually did put on 5 pounds of water weight this month during my PMS, and I actually just kind of don't feel like it. Accept it and be like, that's okay. Because in the moments that you can feel and really allow yourself that no, I don't want to feel it now. No, I don't have any desire right now. When you have a yes moment, you can really appreciate your yes moment and be like, oh, damn, I feel alive today. This feels really, really great. So all of that ebbs and flows all the time. So if you don't feel desire all the time, that's okay. When you do, try your hardest to jump on it. Try your hardest to touch yourself in that moment or connect with your partner. For anybody out there who is in a relationship and you're in your perimenopausal stages or menopausal, or just not in any stage at all, to be honest, but we're talking about that today, creating some space or creating some connection, I should say, not space, where you can help your body release oxytocin, your bonding chemical, is going to be really important in those moments of intention. So I always recommend and this is scientific, like science-backed, this is evidence-based research that states a 6-second kiss once or twice a day is long enough for your body to start producing oxytocin, which is our bonding hormone. It's our love hormone, okay? That necessarily doesn't change too much during perimenopause or anything, because it's just kind of like one of those things in our bodies. We bond with our kids and our best friends and the puppies, and all kinds of stuff creates oxytocin release in our bodies. So if you have a partner and you're able to have a 6-second open mouth kiss once or twice a day, that's going to help increase that oxytocin. Are you going to have sex that day? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Are you going to feel super, super duper sexy every single time you do it? No, probably not. But you're going to help create that connection together and keep it regular. So do that every day. The other way to do that is a 20 to 30 second hug. So you could do your 6-second kiss and then just hold each other for 30 seconds. So now we've got 36 seconds out of your day that you need to carve in order to have some oxytocin release that maybe might remind you, I'm using a lot of maybes and might because I get it when we're in this stage of our lives, but maybe might remind you that you don't hate your partner on a Tuesday afternoon when everybody forgot to get the groceries and the laundry's not done and you're really busy and there's so much going on, and you kind of have that moment to sit in just 36 seconds of stillness and closeness, and maybe start developing a little eroticism between you and your partner again, so that when the time comes for you to want to be, fully in your erotic, connection with them, it would just be that little precursor, and it'll kind of help you feel alive. Okay, so we had a question kind of come in. It's kind of long, but I want to read it out for a couple of reasons. First of all, it has to do with his wife being in perimenopause. Some desire discrepancy issues are in here as well. And the fact that this is written in by a husband, I want you to hear, I want to hear from you men. I want to hear how you guys are dealing with this as well. This is a women's bodily issue, but in our heterosexual relationships, our partners have to kind of take the lead for themselves on educating themselves around menopause and perimenopause as well, because it is such a large transition, and the mental load of us teaching you cannot fall on us in this moment, because we're actually just kind of really confused too and going through the moment. So I think it's really cool that a husband wrote this in, that he has a lot of self-awareness, and that he has the desire to learn and educate himself about his partner's body. So let me put on my perimenopause readers, because that's a new thing too. And let's get into this. Okay. It says, I am struggling with the sexual routine my wife and I have. The sex we have is wonderful, fun, connected, and amazing. But the routine around our sex is controlled entirely by my wife's cycle. And let me be clear, I adore and respect her body. But for 7 to 10 days a month, she's physically off limits. Her interest in sex, solo or with me, drops to 0. Being in perimenopause, it is wildly unpredictable. So again, I listen to and respect her body and experience. The struggle is when I love how he puts this, the struggle is when she emerges from these off-limit cycles, she is full steam, ready to get down. She's the higher desire partner and always has been. She's also a spontaneous desire girl. I love that he knows this language. You're listening, babe, and I really appreciate you and in your relationship for learning all of this. She doesn't need much to be ready to get down and freaky and kinky. Okay, so we're getting into it. Some guys would say, what's the problem? Well, I am a lower desire and always have been, and I need buildup. I'm responsive desire. And my windows, quote, windows, do not always match up with hers. Often, I'm in the mood in that week, plus when she takes sex, I'm in the mood in that week when she takes sex off the table. And when she emerges and, big bold letters, expects me to be ready and also initiate, I'm not always there. Work, stress, mood, just not aligned. I can get there. I am responsive, but I need time and lead up to get there. But the expectation that I be ready to get down whenever she wants. If I'm confessing, it doesn't feel fair. I know that I have to get there for her when she wants it, because in her words, she's, quote, closed for business. That's her playful code for letting me know it's her physical time. is 30% of the time. In short, we just aren't aligned a lot of the time. When she's closed, it's a 100% hard no. Okay, I get it. But when she's horny and ready and I'm not, I'm expected to, quote, man up and get the fuck there. You wanted it last week so bad, didn't you? I'm assuming that's a quote from wife. When we are aligned, I'd put us up against any couple in the universe. Connected, fun, intimate, adventurous, playful. We're so grateful for that. But getting aligned has been getting harder as we age, and the pressure feels like it's all on me to be there when she needs it no matter what. Now, that was huge. Thank you so much for all of that information. And thank you for feeling so comfortable and being vulnerable telling me all about that, because it's such a big thing. You know, men are expected to just be ready all the time. Like, you don't have your own hormonal fluctuations. Like, you don't have your own desire, ups and downs and discrepancies within your own body. Like, maybe you don't have your own body issues that you're dealing with at certain points, or stress affects your body. And, and then the added pressure of being a, quote, man and having to be the initiator all the time is really tough too. So, I'm assuming that you and your wife can be really communicative and have some conversations about what this looks like for you. I'm actually going to go out on a limb and say that you probably have had these conversations, only because of how detailed this was and just how great you guys are in your moments. But that's going to be kind of my biggest recommendation, my biggest advice, is to continue just being communicative about it. Your wife needs to understand that, that's how you feel. So if you haven't told her that, it's going to be so important for you to tell her that. And then there may have to be some days where maybe you're not in the mood, maybe she's not in the mood, but you have to come together on certain days and connect in some way. It doesn't have to be sex, right? But we always talk about scheduling sex, quote, scheduling sex, but you don't have to. But it would be really great if you scheduled eroticism, or if you scheduled intimacy, right? Where you can come together. For you as a responsive desire partner, that's going to be really important for you. You can't just jump in the sack no matter what, right? You're not going to feel that spontaneity. And for your wife to understand that you being a responsive desire partner, but then also having to assume the initiator role, is a really tough place for you to be. I'm going to go out on a limb and maybe say that there could be some opportunity. If you say you're this playful and kinky, there could be a real opportunity for some dynamic power control play, if you wanted to maybe look into that, where when your wife is in her moods to get up and go, that instead of you taking on the initiator role, she can say to herself, you know what, I'm going to initiate today. I'm in control. This is what has to happen. And then that gives you time as the responsive desire person to have her come to you and be like, baby, we're going to make out right now. And I'm going to touch you. And I'm going to, da-da-da. And this is what you like. Or let me rub your feet. Or let me, get on my knees. Whatever it is, give you a little minute to kind of like warm up to that. Because even if you are responsive, it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't want it at all. It just might mean that you need a moment to warm up, right? So even though you say, they're not your times and you're expected to man up, maybe if you guys just gave each other a little time in those moments. So I've talked about this before and I'll mention it again, but you could use my 5-minute method, even in this moment where your wife comes out of it and she's emerging from what she wants. She's the spontaneous desire partner and she comes to you and she's like, ooh, baby, I'm ready to go. But now you've had a conversation about the 5-minute method wherein she'll come to you and say, just give me 5 minutes. And then she does something to you, something that you love, a kiss, right? Remember we just talked about the 30-second hug and the 6-second kiss. You start making out a little bit. Maybe she starts rubbing your belly or rubbing your back, or kind of cupping your bum. Maybe there's some manual play. Maybe your inner thighs are rubbed. Something to just kind of let your body and your mind connect again. So now she's the one coming to you and saying, baby, just give me 5 minutes. You set the 5-minute timer. You interact erotically for 5 minutes. And after that 5 minutes, you get to say, you know what? I'm really not into this today. I'm not rejecting you. There's actually something going on in my day that's really kind of taking over what, my bodily response is right now. Or after those 5 minutes, being a responsive desire partner, you may find your body starting to warm up, starting to kind of relax into that. Your brain and body start to become a little bit connected. You feel desired, right? Because now, this is such a complicated thing because you're the man who is supposed to be the initiator, but you're a responsive desire. And as a man, you want to feel desired. So not everybody wants to initiate. And as a responsive desire partner, it's really hard for you to initiate if you don't feel desired. So having this 5-minute method would be so cool for your wife to be able to come to you and say, just give me 5 minutes. And then you give her those 5 minutes, right? We always talk about how the 5-minute method is for people in relationships and you've had the conversation about this method already and it's very consensual. So because even sometimes when our bodies are not feeling it immediately, when we're in a beautiful consensual relationship and this method is implemented, it's not meant to pressure anybody in any way. It really is just meant to give you a minute to have your brain and body connect. And if after 5 it doesn't, then you get to say, you know what, baby, it's just not working for me today. But that might be something that you guys can try. That 7 to 10 days of like off limits, there's not a heck of a lot we can do except to ask her if maybe there could be some other sort of intimacy that you can participate in so that you can continue your connection together, that intimate connection or an erotic connection, skin to skin contact, 6-second kisses every day, snuggling, foot rubs, anything, anything at all, just to kind of keep you connected, especially if you're feeling fully desired in that moment or fully wanting desire in that moment and you're finally awake. It could be a nice little interim for the two of you to have while you're doing that. So thank you so much for sending that in. That was a lot of information and I really hope that works out the best for you. If you wanted to have a bigger conversation about that, hit me up at serenahaines.com. Let's sit down and have a conversation. Maybe the three of us sit in a room together. Maybe she comes in, maybe you come in, and we, have a little chat about what we can do and little things that we can implement in there to get you guys a little bit more connected. Okay, guys, thank you for listening to this week's episode of Intimacy Unlocked. Having these perimenopause, menopause conversations is so, near and dear to my heart lately, not only because I'm going through it, but there's so many women in my life that are going through it as well. So, we just heard from Amanda earlier in the episode and her question. So, join us on May 20th at 7 p.m. It's going to be an online webinar where we sit down with Amanda, who's a registered nurse, menopause specialist. We're going to have those conversations with her. I'm going to talk about what it's like to kind of help, mitigate some problems with sex and desire. And that's going to be a really fun conversation. So the ticket link for that will be in the show notes as well. I want to give a really great shout out and thank you to the Pleasure Pods for supporting this episode this week. This is fantastic. They're such a great company to work with, and the product is one of my absolute favorites. I know you guys have heard me talk about them forever, and I will forever be grateful for that. So hit us up in the show notes with your anonymous questions, your anonymous voicemails. All of those links will be in our show notes. Visit me at serenahaines.com if you want to kind of have some one-on-one or couples coaching or counseling, see any events that are going on, and Instagram at Serena_Haines for all other content. Thank you for listening to the Intimacy Unlocked podcast, where I'm unlocking your pleasure one question at a time. The key is already in your hands. Are you ready to turn it? Intimacy Unlocked is hosted by me, Serena Haines, your everything to do with sex coach. Produced by Sarah McClellan and supported by the Pleasure Pods.